A few months ago, I watched a guy spend almost 10 minutes rewriting a two-line text message. Not an important message either. He wasn't apologizing to someone, he wasn't negotiating a salary. It was just a normal reply to a friend asking if he wanted to grab dinner that weekend. And still, he kept deleting and rewriting it. At one point, he stopped typing completely and just stared at the screen like the message had somehow become dangerous. I remember thinking, this looks exhausting. But the strange part is, I understood exactly what was happening inside his head. Because people who think too much usually aren't trying to complicate life. Most of the time, they're trying to protect themselves from it. That's the part people misunderstand. Overthinking gets described like it's some bad habit people casually choose, like nail biting, like procrastination. Just stop thinking so much, as if the person hasn't already begged their own brain to do exactly that at 2:17 in the morning. But if you pay attention closely, overthinking usually has a very specific purpose underneath it. Prediction. The brain starts believing that if it can mentally walk through every possible outcome beforehand, maybe nothing painful will happen unexpectedly. Maybe embarrassment can be avoided unexpectedly. Maybe rejection can be softened early. Maybe failure won't feel as bad if it was anticipated in advance. And honestly, that logic makes emotional sense for a while, especially if someone grew up in environments where mistakes carried heavy consequences. A kid who got criticized constantly becomes an adult who rehearses conversations in the shower. Someone who learned that small errors led to humiliation starts scanning every interaction for hidden danger, not dramatically, quietly. That's why overthinkers often look calm from the outside while their brain is running simulations non-stop underneath. They're not relaxing during conversations. They're monitoring tone, timing, facial expressions, word choice. A normal interaction for someone else can feel like reviewing security footage frame by frame afterward. And sometimes the replaying gets absurdly specific. You remember the exact pause before someone answered, the way their expression shifted for a half second. A sentence you said 6 hours ago suddenly sounds wrong now, so your brain grabs it again and starts reprocessing it like reopening an old case file. What makes this difficult is that overthinking occasionally works. That's the trap. Sometimes anticipating problems actually does prevent mistakes. Sometimes being hyper-aware helps you read situations accurately, which means the brain receives evidence that the behavior is useful, so it keeps going. There's a behavioral economics concept called loss aversion. People feel potential losses more intensely than equivalent gains, and overthinkers live inside that logic constantly. The emotional cost of getting something wrong feels heavier than the relief of getting it right. So the brain keeps investing energy into prevention, even when prevention itself becomes exhausting. And this starts leaking into areas people don't talk about enough. Money, for example. Some overthinkers delay decisions so long that opportunities quietly disappear while they're still researching. Jobs, investments, creative projects, relationships, they wait for certainty that never arrives. Someone else applies for the position while they're still mentally preparing for the interview. Someone else launches the business while they're still optimizing the logo. At some point, overthinking stops protecting life and starts shrinking it. That's the uncomfortable part, and I think many people realize this long before they admit it out loud. You can actually see the moment happening. It's usually late at night, you're replaying something again, maybe a conversation, maybe a future scenario that hasn't even happened yet, and suddenly there's this brief moment of awareness where part of you realizes, this isn't solving anything anymore. But the brain keeps going anyway. That's the weirdest part of overthinking. Awareness alone doesn't stop it. Because this isn't just thinking, it's emotional self-protection disguised as analysis. And once I started seeing it that way, a lot of people made more sense to me. The friend who plans every detail before traveling, the coworker who double-checks emails 5 times before sending them, the person who looks responsible from the outside but secretly feels mentally exhausted all the time. A lot of them aren't trying to control life, they're trying to reduce emotional uncertainty. There's a difference. Still, I don't think overthinking always comes from weakness. Sometimes it comes from intelligence mixed with fear.
A brain capable of imagining multiple outcomes at once becomes very good at generating possible danger, too. That's why many overthinkers are also deeply thoughtful people. They notice patterns others miss. They anticipate emotional consequences early. They pick up on subtle shifts in behavior. The problem is that the same ability that helps them understand the world also makes it difficult to mentally leave the world alone for 5 minutes. And maybe that's why telling someone to stop overthinking rarely helps. You're asking them to abandon a strategy their nervous system has trusted for years, even if the strategy is exhausting. If any part of this felt uncomfortably familiar, the replaying, the mental rehearsals, the constant prediction of outcomes, there's a good chance your brain learned somewhere along the way that being prepared felt safer than being surprised. And maybe understanding that is more useful than simply blaming yourself for thinking too much. If you like exploring the hidden patterns behind behaviors people usually dismiss too quickly, there's more of that waiting on Psychology Universe.